Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
We got to this spot tonight and we didn't handle it very well. And you know why? We're going to have to sit down and evaluate individually and collectively. Individually, I mean individually, all of us, not players, just it's coaches and everybody, and evaluate, see what we feel went wrong and why we were so good at handling that, adversity all season, and then all of a sudden, boom. Obviously, it's ramped up, a little more pressure, all that stuff, and we've got to get to a point where we can handle it to get to the next round.
Went to bed last night. You guys were, somewhere in the middle of a near 2-hour Wild Vent Line Judd's Hockey Show, which people can find. It's probably the best therapy you're going to find. Judd's Hockey Show podcast feed and Score North YouTube channel. So I went to bed and you guys were still rocking it. And then I woke up and Judd was still rage tweeting early this morning. Have you slept yet, Judd Zulgad?
Briefly, in fury, bad dreams, turning, tossing, trying to figure out what I just saw, how I could be so duped, how I could be so stupid as to really believe that this was going to be a different team when they turned out to be the exact same. How I could believe in a team that didn't, in the end, believe in itself. No, I'm not well.
Maybe this is a pecking order for next Tuesday, so you can sort of have the weekend to sleep on it. But is this the most duped you've ever felt by a hockey team?
It's as an adult, probably. Well, the North Stars. In the North Stars days, there was times I was. So the team that went to the Stanley Cup final in '81. The next year, they were outstanding. They won the division by quite a bit. They played the Blackhawks, who weren't that good in the first round, and they got bounced. That was probably more devastating. And if I had been an adult, it probably would have qualified as duped. But I think as an adult, this is the most duped I've been. It's a good idea to actually allow me to calm myself, calm my brain, and probably sort that out. But this is right up there with all-time sports dupings. And look, you know what, too? And I think Dex would agree. Judd's Hockey Show last night, again, probably more than ever, really hammered home the fact of the amount of sports fans in this town who are young, but I mean, they're not like 10. They're young, but they're, 18 and up, who have zero reference points of anything truly good. And like Dex, but I'm being completely candid when I say this. I feel bad for them, man. Like, yeah. I at least saw, now it's a long time ago, and that must be taken into context. I saw 2 World Series parades.
You've seen 2 trips to the Stanley Cup Finals, at least.
Exactly.
With the North Stars.
I mean, Dex can speak to this, but people Dex's age, and my God, like, we got an 18-year-old kid on, and these kids are so smart. Like, they're so bright. They know what's what, so they're not like Pollyanna, pie in the sky. And to hear them talk, it makes sports dad's heart hurt because they have no good reference points. Zero.
Yeah. So I'm kind of the age cutoff. So I'm 36 years old. I was like 6 years old when the Twins won in 1991. And I have a couple of vague memories of going to my first grade classroom and the newspaper clipping of Kirby Puckett's Game 6 home run is up on the bulletin board. And, I think they were rerunning one of the Twins. I think they were like rerunning Game 6 in the cafeteria at one point. So we were like eating lunch and watching Game 6. I have like vague memories. And I'm 36. So I have 3 vague memories, basically, of the 1991 World Series. Anyone my age or younger has nothing. Not one trip to a Stanley Cup Finals, certainly no trips to the NBA Finals, no trips to a World Series, no trips to a Super Bowl, let alone winning any of those championships. It's pretty incredible.
What's so funny to me, and I brought this up with Judd, Phil, is when I was... So like my earliest sports memories, I'm 29, so my earliest Minnesota sports memories are like 2000, 2001, 2-ish. Like I remember the 01 Twins. I remember 41 Donut is like my earliest Vikings memory that season. But what was interesting was in 2002, 3, and 4, I saw the Twins, the Wolves, the Wild all get to their respective championship series. So I saw, like, my first real taste of, like, Minnesota sports. I saw actually playoff success, and I saw them be on the doorstep, and I saw the Vikings go to multiple NFC championship games, basically. And then after 2005, and we can go down this list, no one has even come close to barely getting out of the first round. So now, in my adult years, all I know is the first round exits, which is now kind of ironic to me because when I was a kid and I was 10 and 11 thinking, like, is this the norm? Is Minnesota sports on the up and up here?
No.
Oh, no. Oh, God, no. Not even close.
Well, Judd, you're not the only one that got duped. At least you didn't put your career on the line believing in this team. The Hockey Whisperer was born on April 30th, 2014, about 10 or 12 hours before a Nino Niederreiter double overtime Game 7 winner over the Colorado Avalanche. He correctly predicted the double overtime and the guy who was going to score it, and it launched a great career of hockey prognostications, observations, thoughts, predictions. And he put his career on the line, the Hockey Whisperer, this week, last night, because he thought the Wild would force a Game 7 and said, if they do not force a Game 7, then what is the point of doing this? Clearly, the Whisperer's radar is not as honed as it once was. And because the Whisperer is a man of his word, he has put together 6 observations, the final 6 observations of his Hockey Whisperer career.
So this is a funeral
Emotional.
for the Whisperer.
I mean, I don't know how else to classify it.
Right.
These are the 6 final. The Hockey Whisperer can't go out on a limb for the entertainment purposes of the show and say, if they don't win Game 6, he will retire and then back off 24 hours later. He is a man of his word. And quite frankly, maybe the Wild. It could be that the Whisperer's radar is no longer as honed as it was back in the spring of 2014. It also could just be that this franchise, regardless of the coach, the front office, and the players, is just incapable of living up to the pressure and expectations that the Hockey Whisperer tends to put on it. Maybe we'll never know.
As we lay the Whisperer to rest, I feel like it deserves something special. So, like with any funeral, I'm going to put on a tie.
Oh, wow.
I'm rarely put on a tie. Don't like to wear them. Find them uncomfortable. But I'm gonna have the tie at least like this.
The Whisperer appreciates this classy move. I feel like I've only seen Judd in a tie about 4 times.
I remember the Whisperer.
I saw him in a full suit like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was just floored.
Who is that guy?
That was a mistake. Why was I in a full suit?
I don't remember.
All right. 6 observations, thoughts, etc. from the Hockey Whisperer here. The final observations of the Hockey Whisperer's career, thanks to this dud of a playoff performance by the Minnesota Wild. Mm-hmm. Observation number 1. It's more of a thought. The Whisperer applauds Mike Russo of The Athletic for telling it like it is this morning and torching this hockey team. The headline on Mike Russo's Athletic piece reads, "The Wild never fail to disappoint when it matters most." The Whisperer just wants to give a round of applause for telling it like it is. There is no reason to give this team a soft landing after what just happened in these last few games. They deserve to be immersed in their failure. There's no reason to, but look at the learning experience, or, look at the future. No, they soiled themselves after they gained a 2-1 series lead. They were favorites to win the series. They choked. They blew it. They got smoked in the last few games, and they deserve to roll around in it. And so this is how you do your job as a beat writer who covers this team right here. Your job is not to give them a soft landing. It is to let them be immersed in their failure. Nice work, Mike Russo.
And Mike has always done a very good job in that vein. But yeah, this is what the media in this town should be doing. Like, there is nothing to be learned here. The only thing that you can learn is, who do you move on from now? But like, if you're going to be like, well, Jared Spurgeon, just wait till next year's playoffs. No. That's gone. That's such crap. So yes, Mike, for as closely as he covers that team and as much as he has to talk to those people, does a great job of taking them to task when they deserve it. And yes, in one of his last acts, the Whisperer got it right.
Yeah. Good for Mike Russo. Friend of the show.
This is a sad day.
Well, speaking of deciding on which players you should move on from, observation number 2 from the Hockey Whisperer. On the Wild's Mount Rushmore of playoff frauds, not just this year, on the Wild's historical Mount Rushmore of playoff frauds, Kevin Fiala is the George Washington.
Oh!
Mm-hmm. So we criticized Jason Zucker for years for, this guy scores 25, 30 goals in the regular season. Where are the goals in the playoffs when you need a crucial game 3 or something, right, to swing a series? Jason Zucker, 4 goals in 31 playoff games for the Wild, which is atrocious. Kevin Fiala, over his last 15 playoff games, has 1 goal on 45 shot attempts. And the Wild are a minus 12 when he's been on the ice over those 15 games. Dude, he's a fraud. Sorry, Dex. I know he's your guy. He is a playoff fraud, Kevin Fiala. Oh, he also has, I think, 4 or 5 assists over those 5 games. Well, 2 of them, literally a mannequin could have shuffled the puck over to Kirill Kaprizov, who was the actual magician on those exchanges. So, yeah. Defend your guy, Dex.
I think the George Washington still belongs to to Jason Zucker. But I will not disagree that he belongs on there, and he's probably more of your Teddy Roosevelt or your Thomas Jefferson. I think Zucker is still your George Washington level fraud. Charlie Coyle's certainly still on there. Look, Fiala has an edge to him that those other guys don't have, and that does not excuse him not showing up and it basically being this D'Angelo Russell of the Minnesota Wild in the postseason to a degree. But it's extremely disappointing. Like, Kirill showed up. Kirill scored 7 of the 15 goals the Wild scored this year, or in the postseason, and they needed Fiala. They needed him to be the Robin. He was the Robin to Kirill's Batman all season long, and for whatever reason, Fiala now is back on a wanted poster, MIA, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's moved on. But I don't know if I'd call him the George Washington yet, but I get where you're calling from.
Doesn't matter. He's on there, and he was terrible.
Yeah.
And look, they had a bunch of guys that absolutely did nothing, who are good players, and there's no excuse for it. Again, I'm not going to make excuses. People will say, well, there's a lot of guys, we're going to find out, were hurt. Well, guess what? The Blues were without 4 defensemen in Game 4.
Everyone's hurt. Everyone has broken bones, missing teeth.
But here's the thing. If you are hurt so badly that you're going to be bad or can't contribute, then you don't play. The Blues did exactly that. The Blues got guys back, and in some cases said you can't play. So, like, if you can't play and you're terrible, that's on you and the team. That's not an excuse. Like, there are no excuses for what we saw. Jared Spurgeon, Brodin, last night, Marcus Foligno was terrible. Marcus Foligno was absolutely terrible. And I know he's got a bad knee, but again, if you can't contribute, like if you're going to be a minus player, everyone has to then say, should you play? I'm done. I'm done with the whole thing. I'm done. I hated previous Wild teams. I don't hate this team, but I hate what they did starting the 3rd period of Game 5. I hate it.
Are you done with Fiala?
Despicable. He's going to be moved. I can guarantee you this.
Do you think that decision, do you think he was going to be moved before Game 1? And do you think these 6 games have swayed that decision?
I think they were leaning towards trading him before Game 1. Now, personally, like Dex and I were like, wow, with how he's playing, I don't think that you can. I think Bill Guerin was probably in the camp of I'm going to trade him. That decision, though, was made easy. Kevin made that simple now. But there is no one, I guarantee you this, there is nobody more pissed off today than Bill Guerin. Like, a guy who's won 4 cups does not watch that crap and like, well, we're coming a long way. And Bill Guerin knows this too, and this is very important. This team's about to go into cap hell. This was the run, and the reason why they got Delorier and Fleury over to Middleton, over to Jost. They made those trades based on the fact that they knew very well that for the next few years it's going to be very tough to add. So I guarantee you, Bill Guerin's ticked, and I guarantee you that he is going to do a hard audit of what went wrong here. And one of the people, and I hope the Whisperer talks about this, that he's going to look at is the guy behind the bench.
It's actually pretty remarkable, too, when you think about all the moves. And I hope people, and you could maybe even do this with the Bally Sports theme playing in the background as I do this. It's actually remarkable, all the trades Bill Guerin made, and the Wild still have a draft pick in each of the first 6 rounds of this draft. It's actually pretty impressive when you think of that, because of all the things they did.
The future
Coming
is
up
bright
next.
for this hockey franchise. Look at all the young talent they can inject into this system.
The Fleury trade didn't cost him a first-round pick. Maybe elimination was good.
Good, yeah. Coming up next.
So let's actually, so of the 6 observations, there's 4 remaining here. The Whisperer doesn't have one specific to Dean Evason. So let's go down that path for a second here. I know that you've had some issues, Judd, with just the big change was either too late or misguided. In fact, you know what? Let's go into this one. Observation number, I'm going to shuffle these around here on behalf of the Whisperer. Observation number 3 is the decision to start Cam Talbot turned out to be a desperate, futile exercise.
Correct.
I don't know that it backfired because, you got to score goals. If you're not scoring 3 or 4 goals anyways, it probably doesn't matter who your goaltender is, but it just seemed like a panicked, desperate move. And that's the way that it looked. I mean, in fairness to Talbot, the guy hasn't played in 3 weeks or whatever it is, and now you're asking him to just go in a backs-against-the-wall game against a team on the road. So maybe this is the Evason conversation, which is of all the different buttons he could have pushed, of all the different things he could have done, this was kind of the big one, and it just felt off. And maybe the Whisperer should have gone out and made it more clear that he would have left Marc-Andre Fleury in. If you're going to go this far with Fleury, you might as well just stick with him. But I don't know. What did you guys think? Like, how would you rate Dean Evason in the series and as the coach of this team going forward? Confidence scale 1 to 10, 1 being fire his ass, 10 being not his fault at all whatsoever.
In the series, he gets an F, and the problem is this:
So like a 1.
Yeah,
You took my number scale and made it a letter scale.
Classic.
he gets a
Sorry,
0.
translate.
I mean,
That's
no. It's a 0 in the
Let me take your
playoffs.
question,
It's a
manipulate
0, and he did a bad job last year against the Golden Knights as well. As a regular season coach, he is probably an 8. He does a great job. He lets the players police themselves. The locker room is I don't think that's a big problem now. As far as going forward in the playoffs, like if you're talking about my confidence, it's a 1. It's a 1. He does not adjust. He keeps things. He is stubborn to a fault, which in January can work out. In the springtime, look, playoff hockey, Whisperer, in our last segment together ever, playoff hockey can be random because the sport can be, but it's also series. 7-game series are also strategic, which means coaching comes into play, which means I'll give you an example of desperation versus adjustment. Jordan Binnington taking over for Husso in Game 3 was an adjustment that worked brilliantly, but it wasn't desperation. Husso didn't have to be, like, he wasn't great in Game 2, but he was certainly great in Game 1, and I guarantee you, if Dean was behind the Blues bench, he does not make that move. But Berube saw opportunity for adjustment that was best for the team. I agree with the Whisperer, Declan, in that the Talbot thing, it was right or wrong desperation. It was it was the old we need a spark move. Binnington wasn't spark move. It was Berube knew a lot of things, including the fact, and like he played Dino. He knew that Binnington could play the puck. Binnington's ability to play the puck then basically took the Wild forecheck and forced them to adjust to the adjustment. And here is what happened when that took place. Hold on a second. Who's got crickets? Because the Wild did nothing about it. They're like, oh, I guess our forecheck. It's literally the Vikings against the Lions at US Bank Stadium. Justin Jefferson, 7 first-half catches. And the Lions say, oh, we're going to roll some safety help. And the Vikings say, okay, that's it then. Justin's done.
Okay, here's a question for you. I know the Islanders missed the playoffs this season.
Oh, God.
And that's why Barry Trotz got fired.
Oh, boy.
In the previous
Oh, my God.
7 years before that,
Say it.
Oh, my God.
Barry Trotz never lost in the first round. He has a Stanley Cup with Washington before the contract dispute bounced him out to New York. He's not even 60 years old. Barry Trotz has been around for 25 years. He looks like he's 80, but he's not even 60. Would you consider? I mean, how rare is the opportunity for a Barry Trotz to be just sitting out there available to be hired as a coach? Would you consider it?
Would I consider? I'd consider everything right now. I'd consider everything because the question is this: do you have players and a coach that can get you to the Stanley Cup final? Not can you get a lot of points?
Mm-hmm.
Points don't matter. What Patrick Royce said in his appearance today with us is 1,000% right. Regular season success in hockey means nothing. Nobody cares. The Wild Northwest Division champions. The banner hangs. Go burn that banner. Just get rid of that banner. That banner's embarrassing. Playoff runs and playoff success and Stanley Cups ultimately are what matter. And I think what we saw, like if you want to say, coming up next on Bally Sports North, what the Wild learned, it's about jettisoning people. It's about judging people. It's about saying not they learned, but who no longer belongs. And look, Dean made a case, and I do not think, to be clear, he's going to be fired, but I think Dean made a very good case to be fired. When you can adjust, when you don't adjust. Playoff hockey is very much like football. It's a series of adjustments, strategic, small. Berube shuffled lines, and he didn't do it willy-nilly. He did it to get guys away from the Eck line. And basically, the Eck line after that went right downhill. It was brilliant. He manipulated his defensemen like a puppeteer. That's what I'm talking about when I say the coaches puppeteer teams. I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm saying they literally puppeteer teams. The smart ones do. And that also means knowing when to let your players play. But you got to know when to pull the reins, guys. You got to know when to pull the reins. And Dean and that coaching staff did nothing to help the team.
He's not going anywhere. I'd be shocked. They just extended him. He's not going anywhere yet. Barry Trotz, yes, arguably one of the better coaches in the NHL that's now all of a sudden available. Berube literally skated circles around Dean in terms of, for the lack of better words, when it comes to these coaching decisions in the postseason. And, I mean, for God's sakes, he started slappies in Game 3s and 4 when they were out of their defensemen. Scott Perunovich from UMD, great kid, awesome guy at UMD, came in to the postseason after missing the last few weeks, and I know he was hurt. They started a kid as an extra forward because they were that banged up, and the Wild weren't able to take advantage. To the Binnington point, like Jordan Binnington can play the puck, and that's great. Jordan Binnington didn't steal this series for St. Louis, in my opinion. And I saw some Blues fans chirping Score North's Twitter account after the graphic was pulled because Binnington had lost 9 consecutive playoff starts going in to Game 4. That's a stat, dude. That's a fact. That's the case. That didn't age poorly. That was a fact about Jordan Binnington. And he did not steal this series. The Wild shot themselves in the foot and sabotaged themselves, and Binnington reaped the benefits. I don't think Dean Evason goes anywhere yet, but look, Gibby made this point with us, a Wild listener on Ventline. He's Mark Jackson with the Warriors right now. Like, Mark Jackson was a great regular season coach that never got that Warriors team over the hump. Steve Kerr comes in, helps push some extra buttons, and obviously getting Draymond Green, then eventually Kevin Durant makes things a lot easier for you. But great regular season coach, not really a good postseason coach, and it's the evidence is right in front of you.
Yeah. Observation number 4. This is some good fodder here. Hockey Whisper is happy with the way these final observations are going, just generating some good discussion here. That's all he's ever really wanted to do, is entertain the hockey fans and generate good discussion and win Stanley Cups. And unfortunately, he fell short of that third goal. Observation number 4, Kirill Kaprizov, quite simply, deserved better. Dex already mentioned it. The Wild scored 15 goals in this series, 7 by Kaprizov, 8 by his underachieving, overwhelmed, choking teammates. I've also seen some people saying, well, no, it's Marc-Andre Fleury is the one that you should feel bad for because, he's 37. This might have been his last chance. He's got 3 cups already. He's Hall of Fame bound. Whatever. Like, he's going to be fine. And Kaprizov's going to have a long career too, but this was just a great opportunity. He rose to the occasion. He stepped up when they needed him. And all he needed was for a teammate or two to join the party. The ask was not that much. And despite the low bar and the low asking price, his teammates could not pay up and deliver. I think Kaprizov was the best player in the series on both teams. He deserved better.
It's fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah, and this is where Bill Guerin let the team down. And Declan and I and a ton of people who follow this team expressed concern starting in training camp about the lack of a true number one center. And I mean, Bill came on our show and talked to, basically shouted it from the mountaintop. You guys are too focused on that. We've got guys that can play. And during the regular season, he was proven pretty doggone right. Ryan Hartman, Gaudreau played well. Hartman probably had a career year. The problem is we were proven right when it mattered most, which was the playoffs. Ryan Hartman disappeared. Not because he didn't try hard. He did try hard. He just couldn't do it. He literally, if the regular season ceiling is here and the playoff ceiling is here, right? Hartman hit this one and he couldn't get above it. Gaudreau, same thing. And so this is where I will point at Bill. And I don't know what was out there. I don't know what the possibilities were. But, I mean, this goes back to the summertime. Kirill Kaprizov deserved a center who could at least help him be great. When Kirill Kaprizov made plays, he often, unfortunately, in the playoffs, did it by himself. Or Zuccarello set him up for a great goal in game 2. But the other problem is, here's another problem. Zuccarello disappeared too. Like, for the most part, where was he? And he's supposedly the Robin to Kirill's Batman. So, yeah, I do think the fact that this team, not only do they not have a number one center, they don't have a 2. And Eriksson Ek is fine where he is, but I don't think that, oh, man, just move him up with Kirill. We sort of saw that. It doesn't work. Kirill Kaprizov deserved better, and it was prophesized from the Hockey Mountaintop Whisperer that this would happen. We just didn't know when. Well, unfortunately, it was the first round against the Blues.
No. Well, let's transition here because this one kind of goes hand in hand with observation number 4. Observation number 5 of 6. We're nearing the end here for the Hockey Whisperer. No team in the NHL bungles a power play quite like the Minnesota Wild. Let's start with the fact that this is a do-or-die game. It's a must-win game. You're on the road, and you are gifted 2 power plays in the first 8 minutes of the first period, and you can't cash in. You can barely get shots off, for God's sakes.
Right.
All right. Then your third power play comes along, and Marcus Foligno, Marcus Foligno, I think he was probably their second or third best player in the series. He had that just freight train performance the previous game with 10-plus hits. He's going around just headhunting everyone. Mm-hmm. But he passes up a wide-open shot in the slot.
Yep.
And tries to get cute. Foligno trying to get cute with a little dump pass, thinking that there was somebody behind him. There wasn't. The puck glides out of the zone. They waste another 20 seconds. What are you doing, dude? Fire the puck. You're gifted 2 power plays early. Your third power play, you're getting too cute. The Blues, meanwhile, play a perfect game of tic-tac-toe on their third goal. I believe they scored on like 30% of their power plays in the series, and that was the biggest glaring difference between these two teams. Ineptitude by the Wild on the power play. Surgery by the Blues on theirs.
Well, and let's talk about this too. Yes, and the Blues power play and special teams was very good. But that does not mean that you go into the series with the thing of, well, I guess they're good and we're not. What about the penalty kill? What about last night? What about Ryan O'Reilly being allowed to stand in the slot? That is 2 things: lack of execution and lack of effort. The power play struggles, and both of these fall back into the head coach conversation, because the power play struggles. The one time that they scored the power play goal, and I believe they scored 2 power play goals in game 2, and they scored 2 in game 5, and that was their 4 power play goals for the entire series. The first power play goal in game 5 was the one where Foligno and Ek changed, and Foligno's on the second power play, and that's what we had talked about on Judd's Hockey Show. Put Foligno out there. He creates a great screen. Ek works hard and is good, but Foligno is like an ideal screen guy. And guess what? Kaprizov scored because of the screen. They came back then in that game last night, same power plays. Same power plays. Just ran it back. Didn't try anything different. Nothing different. The penalty kill, they played stupid. That's the other thing, too, is we need to focus on how stupid the Wild played. How, Dumba in because we can talk about, well, the Blues were down 4 defensemen in game 4, which is accurate, and that's incredibly frustrating. But nobody said, Matt Dumba, you have to make one of the stupidest passes possible to Ryan O'Reilly, basically. The third goal, the Tarasenko goal in game 5, if you go back and watch that, what led up to that goal is inexcusable. And it's on coaching too, okay? So the Blues dump the puck in as the guy is about to get to the red line. It's arguably potentially icing. Ryan Hartman puts his arm up as if to say that's going to be icing. He therefore slows up. The puck comes into behind the net. Fleury, potentially thinking it's going to be icing, allows the puck to go. Middleton, expecting Fleury to get the puck and stop it for him, gets beaten by the Blues player, Butch Davis, to the puck, who centers the puck, for Tarasenko, who Greenway has failed to pick up, even though that's Jordan's man. That's 3 or 4 stupid mistakes that cannot happen. And part of my theory is Fleury allowed that puck to go because from the press box, Judd's scouting report said, unlike Bennington, Marc-Andre Fleury doesn't play the puck well.
Are Judd's scouting reports written out in sort of hand in a notebook, or what format are they usually?
They're in my notes. They're in my notes. I keep my notes. But the point is, if he let the puck go because he doesn't play the puck well, that's not ideal. But I sort of get that because if you screw that up, it's a big problem. Miscommunication in the playoffs, like not being on the same page, like pulling up and thinking that it's going to be icing. Yeah. Greenway not picking up Tarasenko. All of these things from top to bottom are inexcusable, and it's how you lose games. And it's also how you get to a point of doing what they did last night, which in my opinion is quitting. So tell me how any of this is, like, you tell me, Bally's, today, you spin this one, get off the golf course and spin this one for me. Give me the positive here. What's the positive?
We go down to Declan Goff, who is rinkside.
He's driving a chip away from hitting a par today. Yeah, that's basically what that looks like. Judd nails it. It's embarrassing. There is no real way to get around it. I'm sad and pissed. I thought this was going to be a nice lengthy run, and here we are. Another early first round exit, 6-game exit for what it was about effing winning. Well, that's another first round exit. We got that going for us.
Can I draw a quick parallel to Dino? Rocco Baldelli playoffs.
Yeah.
What works for me in the regular season is going to work for me in the playoffs. No, actually, that's not true.
And in both cases, I would argue that you have a lot less influence over what happens as a hockey coach and a baseball manager. Like the players are going to decide what happens by and large, but there are things you can do to put players in better situations and at least make the chessboard look a little bit more competitive. And yeah, both those guys. I think with Rocco, it almost feels like he's a passive bystander personality-wise sometimes too. Dean doesn't give off that vibe at all personality-wise. And yet he kind of stared at this thing for 6 games and was like, oh, with a menacing, grimaced face, chiseled jawline. I love when they'd show him after each mounting St. Louis goal, and he's just like grinding his teeth and looking up at the scoreboard.
That dude could kick our asses all at once.
Blindfolded with one hand behind his back.
That guy is, I guarantee you, that guy is strong as hell.
Yeah. I would say Rocco, Rocco's more of a deferring and passenger, and Dino just, it just looks like, I'm not going to do anything about it. Like, I'm just going to let the players figure it out, which, to be honestly, I respect to a degree. But, dude, you got to push some buttons here. Like, Craig Berube was down all these defensemen and had his season on the brink down 2-1, and he pushes the right buttons. It's like Dean just kind of just watched. You just watched you hit the iceberg and watch everyone sink and die.
Iceberg, right ahead. Dino just
just pissed off. I'm going to beat that iceberg up. But your job is not to like make these huge sweeping changes, right? Like it's not like to be, oh my God, your job is to do what Berube did, or in Rocco's case, it's to say, you know what, Jose Barrios stays in today. Like it's to give guys chances to succeed. Because Phil, you're right. The players ultimately decide it, but you earn your stripes and your money by doing what might appear to be small things that are incredibly important. Dean did none of those things.
Yeah. Well, the Whisperer's been trying to drag this out because he just doesn't.
I don't want him to go.
It's hard for him to believe that things escalated to this point after 8 years, putting his career on the line for a Game 6 in St. Louis. But we have reached the sixth and final observation here. And the Whisperer just wants you guys to know how much he's enjoyed being your favorite hockey prognosticator over the past 8 years. But for this final observation, he wants you to know also that he's fed up and wants to raise 2 middle fingers to the sky on his way out of this seat. Observation number 6. Minnesota sports teams are the weakest-minded teams in all of America. None of them overcome adversity. 60 years of North Stars and wild hockey. The state of hockey. We've branded this the state of hockey. 60 years, no championships. Over 20 years of wild hockey. 1 trip beyond the second round of the playoffs. 60 years of Vikings football. 0 championships. 30 years of Timberwolves basketball. 1 meaningful playoff run. 18 years of Twins baseball since 2004. 0-18 in playoff games. The Whisperer, quite frankly, boys, is above all of this. He will no longer be dragged down by this cesspool of mediocrity that is Minnesota sports. He's putting his swimsuit on, his sunglasses on, and he is riding off to some beach somewhere. Don't be sad because it's over. Smile because the Nino Niederreiter double overtime goal happened in 2014. Whisperer out.
It's like saying goodbye. Yeah, it's like saying goodbye to a friend.
Standing ovation, Declan. All we can do is applaud. The Whisperer has left the building. Whisperer. Whisperer. Let's get an encore. Whisperer. Whisperer.
The streak. The streak is over. It was career versus the streak. This was
encore. Encore. Whisperer.
Macadac had to come back to finish out the rest of the show here at some point.
We want the Whisperer. We want the Whisperer. Who's got my lighter?
I don't know. I feel like there might to continue the wrestling parallels I'm making here. I feel like there's maybe an American Badass or Back to Dead Man pivot that the Whisperer could be making in future months.
An evolution.
Have his injury and evolution.
The
from
Whisperer,
the Legend Killer to the Viper, something like that.
Sure. Well, the Whisperer will leave you with this thought. He's done with observations and prognostications.
Oh.
He's done with observations and prognostications, okay?
Oh, I thought we were burying the Whisperer. But, well, if that's not the case, I'm going to take this tie off.
I'm just saying, maybe in the future he has thoughts. Maybe in the future he has points of emphasis.
Are they
or
be phoned in from
statistics
the beach?
Of interest.
Now, are they going to come from the beach?
Yeah, it's going to be like, what's that movie with Michael Douglas where he's got the late 80s, early 90s at Wall Street? He's going to be walking up and down the beach with an early 90s phone, like a brick up to his ear, just giving you statistics of interest maybe in a year from now. We'll see.
So the Whisperer might be a consultant for Mackie and Judd is what you're saying.
He's open to work, okay, but he needs to take some time away. He will not be dragged down by this cesspool of mediocrity.
Put his career on the line last night, and it bit him in the ass.
It did. Yep, that's true. All right, boys.